let's go. I want to see how analytical a thinker you are. I want to ask you, how will the outcome of this game um, affect your perception of this team this year, the Patriots?
We're going to know everything that we need to know about this team over the next two games. Whether or not they are truly a championship driven team, I think that this is going to be their toughest game of the year. Home against this Buffalo team that I think has started to come on a little bit here over the last couple of games. So ultimately, to answer your question, we're going to know everything. Again, we're going to know everything we need to know about this team and whether or not they have a genuine shot at the Super Bowl over these next two games.
Okay. So if they beat Buffalo, then you talk about like at this stage of the season going into the playoffs. Obviously, you talk about the Rams, the Seahawks, and the Patriots. That's pretty much the conversation. And Broncos, I guess. Broncos
Yeah.
have such a tough stretch coming up. How they perform is going to speak. They're in a kind of similar situation to the Patriots, obviously, record wise, perception wise, going into the season. I mean, the Denver was supposed to be a borderline playoff team, but we'll see how they do over these last four games. They're going to be very tough for them. But so let's say it's those four teams. If Denver goes on a losing streak, these three teams, I don't see the Rams or Seattle falling apart. If they lose a close one, does that change your perception of how they might do in the playoffs?
A little bit, because the expectation around this team has changed really dramatically even over the last 6 weeks, where, we thought that they were maybe, again, kind of a borderline playoff team, and then they're clearly a playoff team, postseason worthy. And now as you mentioned, they've started to enter the conversation as a Super Bowl team. And so I think it's reasonable to sit here and say, hey, if they lose, they drop back a little bit. I will say this, that everyone in the locker room that I talked to yesterday, Drake Maye talked about this as well at the podium, that they want to get this done. And when I say this, I mean clinching the division this week. This was, if you think back to January, really the number one thing that Vrabel addressed. He says, first thing we want to do is win the division. And this is a major step for them as a franchise. If they're able to unseat the Bills, if they're able to get it done this weekend at home, it would still mean just as much if you did it next week against the Ravens and, down the road. But they want to get this done now so they can kind of start checking things off their list moving forward.
Okay, now the final scenario that I'll give you, because it is interesting because it's such a litmus test. What if they lose by more than a touchdown?
Then that's a bigger question about this team moving forward. And look, if
Do they for
something
sure win the division? Do you think if they lose by more than a touchdown? I know a loss is a loss, but then you go into Baltimore. You've won 10 in a row. Now you've lost decidedly. More than a touchdown in the NFL is obviously a lot. You've lost decidedly. You're going into Baltimore. Are you in danger of not winning the division? Buffalo's won 3 in a row at that point. Are you in danger of not winning the division, in your opinion?
I don't think this team is in danger of not winning the division. And I think a lot of it would depend on how things play out on Sunday if they ended up losing by a touchdown or 10 points or whatever. But if they can win by look, I think this is going to be an incredibly close game. I think that the Patriots are going to be able to put up points. I think Buffalo's going to be able to put up points. It's going to be a shootout. But if they end up winning by 7, 10 points, you feel really good about where you are, because this is the last true playoff worthy team on your schedule. And you want to get as much of a bump as possible with the postseason kind of coming into view. You want to kind of, assert yourself as the big dogs in not just the AFC East, but in the AFC. And if they can do that on Sunday, I think that's a huge step in the right direction for this team when you're talking about momentum going into the postseason.
Health is so important, Chris. And it just seems like everything's coming up Patriot all year long. Even the serious-looking injuries all of a sudden aren't so serious.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I talked to Will Campbell very briefly in the locker room yesterday, and I'll tell you this. For all the world, he didn't look like a guy who was enduring a season-ending injury. He was kind of laughing and joking around. I was talking with him in Morgan Moses about a couple of different things. And so he is a guy who I think is going to be able to return in some form or fashion, and that kind of shores up the left side of that line. As you mentioned, I heard you at the top of the hour, John, talking about the three guys back at practice yesterday: Schooler, Tonga, and Wilson. I think that's going to give them a huge boost, particularly Tonga going up against a Buffalo team that can really run the ball. So yeah, I mean, things are kind of rounding into form for them. I think the last thing, the last guy you want to look for is Milton Williams. He's eligible to come back against the Jets later this month. If you have that group going into the postseason, you feel really good about where you are in the playoffs.
For the purposes on Sunday, we saw how the Patriots were able to deal with the issues on the left side of the line against the Giants. Do you expect a similar game plan on Sunday and to the same degree of success?
Yeah, for a few reasons, including the fact that Buffalo has struggled to put together a consistent pass rush all season. This is not a good team when it comes to getting pressure on opposing passers. They do have some talent in the back end, but I think Drake Maye is going to have a lot of time back there against this Buffalo defense. New England, again, is going to put up, I think, 30-plus points in this thing just because the Buffalo defense has struggled so much over the course of the last few games. You feel good about where they are offensively if you're a Bills fan coming into this thing. And I think the lack of Milton Williams is going to allow them to do some things in the ground that might make some Patriots fans concerned. But I think New England is going to be able to win this thing in a shootout, at least in part because the Buffalo defense has struggled to get pressure on quarterbacks this season.
Well, Cook has had such a problem turning the ball over that should be interesting. I mean, it's
Turn the ball over twice on the same drive.
Look, Allen tries to do too much, obviously, sometimes, and can turn the ball over. But between him and Cook, I mean, this turnover battle looks infinitely winnable.
Yeah, it really does. And I think a lot of that indicates, it really kind of, points to the fact that the Patriots have done a really good job taking care of the football over the course of the season. It was a major point of emphasis for them after the first month.
Well, they turned the ball over 5 times in a game, I'd imagine.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
Gets
I mean, this is Fred, this is a totally different team than the one that lost to the Steelers early in the season. And that just kind of speaks to the fact that it's a long year and you have to kind of wait for things to play out. But yeah, I think Cook's turnover issues have become a real thing for the Buffalo offense. It's become a point of emphasis for them moving into this game. And I wouldn't be surprised to see one of those situations where you see a bunch of guys try to punch at the ball, when he's carrying it.
So you think Buffalo, you say a shootout, but do you think Buffalo has a chance to be able to move the ball on the ground? Do you think that there is an opportunity for them to maybe keep the Patriots offense off the field? Because they have to know their defense is struggling. I mean, for years that was, that was the blueprint with the Tom Brady Patriots, just kind of ground them out, kind of put together some 8, 9, ideally 10-minute drives where you can keep Brady off the field for as long as possible. I think Buffalo's going to try and do the same thing on Sunday. I think also at the same time, we're going to get into the fourth quarter and this is going to be, back and forth, up and down the field. This is going to be the kind of game that, Andy Borregales is going to win in the last 2 minutes with a field goal. The Patriots are going to win like 38-35. So you're really confident that the Patriots are winning this game?
Yeah, I for a couple of reasons. We just talked about the Buffalo defense struggling. The Buffalo offense is really good. Cook's turnover issues aside, and they're going to be able to put up points against this defense again. I think do at least in part because Milton Williams is not going to be out there. But I think New England's offense is going to be able to move the ball. Drake Maye is going to be able to make some real connections. I think this is going to be a sneaky big game for Hunter Henry. And the other thing, too, the Patriots' special teams are one of the best in the league, if not the best in the league at this point. And Buffalo is okay, but I think that's another difference maker when you talk about this matchup.
The Jets have the best special teams in the league. They do.
How dare you?
They do.
Okay.
It's certainly up there. Folks missed 1 field goal. Williams has got 2 touchdown returns. How dare you besmirch that team?
I love Nick Folk. Nick Folk's the best, man.
He's your age.
He got a game ball after they beat Atlanta, and it was the most uncomfortable thing I've ever seen. It was the most anticlimactic thing. Like Aaron Glenn's like going crazy, and he hands him the ball, and Nick Folk's like, "Hey, thanks. I'm 45." Yeah, I don't care. We suck. Go ahead, Jonathan. Finally,
finally, Patriots obviously loaded with young players. They have more snaps from rookies than on almost any other NFL team. Do you subscribe to the theory that they're not really sure how good? They're not sure how they're doing this. They're too young to understand how good they are this year.
Yes. I think while a lot of them have played in big games like Campbell and Trevion Henderson, they are not completely cognizant of how good this team is right now. You don't know until you've gone through it as a player, the pressure cooker of important games in December, in January. And I think that group, Craig Woodson, I think, has done a really good job. We talked about him earlier this season. So I think they're going to have to learn by going through it, but I think they're certainly up to the challenge. This group has been really good this year.
For all the latest from the Sports Hub, download the app at 985thesportshub.com.